All right, there we go.
All right. Welcome back to the the Friends of Zeus podcast, not the Zeus and Tom show. Before we get started, Mike's going to be hosting tonight. Look for us on Facebook at the Friends of Zeus podcast, on YouTube under Giants Jack. Also, you can look for us at the Friends of Zeus podcast. It pops up in Google. Rumble, which is questionable, and Spotify. And that about covers it. What's the show about tonight, Mike? You are hosting.
I am hosting. So we wanted to lighten things up a little bit because there's all sorts of crazy things going on, and we just can't keep doing all the intense subjects all the time because that's no fun. So this is one I thought about for a while, and it's advice you would give your 18-year-old self. And for anyone that's seen Back to the Future, the first thing that comes to mind is, gambling. You can like tell your 18-year-old self who wins every Super Bowl, but it's not really, or to buy Apple stock or whatever. But that's not really kind of what I'm going for. There's a play Samuel Beckett wrote called Krapp's Last Tape. It starts with a K. It's like a one-person, one-act show, and basically it deals with this old guy who every year or every so often he records himself on a reel-to-reel
It's like
tape.
you're completing my sentences for me. Yeah. Yingling. Sorry, I'm just taking care of business.
No, that's cool. So he records himself, and he kind of, before he records himself, he goes back and listens to like tapes from previous years. And then he has commentary about that. So, if he's 70 years old, he'll listen to a tape from when he was 20, when he was like 42, whatever. And he kind of has stuff to say. And he's a little bit of a mensch and a little bit of a hermit. But the thing, I've always loved the play, and I've seen it live. I've seen it perform many times. But the thing I like about it is, again, it's when you're at a certain point in your life and you have a view of like what the future is going to be, and then being able to have the perspective later on to kind of check whether that perspective was correct or not, and then try to, correct yourself moving forward and learn from your past experience. The other thing is, I think having children has kind of made me really take the advice thing seriously, because when I was growing up, I love my parents. They're fantastic, but they didn't really give me like advice like here's what you should do or here's what you should look at. It was all go to school, get good grades, don't get arrested, pretty much. And I really feel that before you can give anyone good advice, you kind of have to give yourself good advice, or kind of like check what your thought processes were, and kind of think about where you've come from and decisions you made, and kind of have a sense of self accountability in your own life. And since we're all like, I guess, middle age at this point, right? Roughly, hopefully we're middle age. Yeah. Hopefully we're not near the end. Who knows with science, maybe we're all going to live to be 200 with our brains in a jar or something. I have no idea.
God, I hope not.
I know. But it's just sort of in thinking to this play, this Krapp's Last Tape, it's never too late to give yourself some good advice. So anyway, I was thinking, what advice would I give my 18-year-old self? And it's been a conversation that my wife and I have had, her for herself, not just myself, but, it's just sort of like a kind of an interesting thing to get into. And 18 is kind of an arbitrary age, but it is an age when, you're finishing high school. Most people, if they're not already on their own or moving out of their parents' house or what have you, I mean, it's usually a time of a lot of flux, in your life. And so that's kind of what the starting point was. I don't, it doesn't have to be something profound or anything like that. But again, I'm a big proponent of accountability and kind of like, owning decisions. And I don't have a ton of regret, but there's definitely some things I could have done better. I'm sure everyone, could have, looking forward. But I think, for myself, I think at the time I was very caught up with what I'm supposed to be doing. You're supposed to graduate from high school and either like get a job right away or go to college or, just kind of keep pushing. And it's not really, people don't really put a lot of weight into kind of taking some time and thinking about where you want to go. I mean, I think in Europe, don't they have more of like the taking a year off or taking a couple years off and like traveling as kind of a cultural norm? I mean, I don't know. Do you guys know anyone that did that here in the US where they just kind of like took
Yeah.
Not on purpose.
Not
no.
me.
You're usually forced into it.
Yeah, I mean, and I don't mean like taking time off, going to college or not, but just sort of,
Right. Like in Australia, they call it walkabout. You just
yeah,
kind of go and find yourself.
yeah, and kind of like get a feel for like what you're interested in and what you're not interested in. The big thing that when I look back, and I didn't really, the big advice I have, and I don't know about for girls so much. I don't know if it's the same for girls, but for guys, is like learning a trade. And I don't mean necessarily that you have to become a plumber or become an electrician or something as your profession. But doing something, learning a skill that is timeless, that is always in need, that you can always make a living at. For me personally, I fell into it. It wasn't a conscious decision. But when I was in high school, I always worked, and I worked at a movie theater as an usher, and there were two projectionists, and I always kind of dug that. I kind of I like the machines. I loved movies, and so I'd go up there and hang out with one of the projectionists all the time. And after a few months, the other projectionist got fired for having like weed parties up in the booth and inviting people in the back door and drinking on the job and all that. So he got fired, and I was like, man, I could totally do this. And the older projectionist was like, yeah, you probably could, because he had been showing me how to do it. Anyway, long story short, I got the job. I was like, I don't know, 16 and a half.
Looks like Jack's coming in.
Yeah, he's coming in.
Cool,
and I was like 16 and a half. And part of being a projectionist is you have to work till like 2 or 3 in the morning on Thursdays, because that's the night that the movies switch over. So this is all 35 millimeter film. You got to take the old films apart, put the new ones together. And my parents were totally cool with that. So I'm in high school, just started driving, getting home at 3 in the morning on a school night, every other week.
Wow.
And still keeping my grades up and all that. Anyway, so went to
if I can interrupt you for a second, do you like look back on that and say, what the heck were your parents thinking?
Kind of, yeah, because my parents are pretty straight edge about stuff. So yeah, it wasn't like I think they knew I loved it, and I think I was making decent money. I mean, I think I was making like 14 or 15 an hour. I mean, which is a lot of money for 16, 17-year-old. And I was able to maintain my grades, so they didn't see a downside to it, I guess. But anyway, point is, projecting is not electrician work or anything. But when I went to college,
hey, Grandpa.
Hey, Grandpa. When I went to college and I needed to make some money, I got a job at an old theater projecting. And then when I left college and I was living in Baltimore for a short period of time, at first, I was like looking for like what I really wanted to do, like what I had studied in school. But I got a job at an old theater, and then and it paid the bills. And then years later, between jobs, I got a job projecting films for film festivals, and making decent money doing it. I mean, it's something I ended up doing for like 25 years of my life, like on and off, and it would come up and I could jump into it at any time because I had so much experience. I mean, I'd passed that like 10,000 hours, when you become an expert at something. So in other words, it was something that, I mean, unfortunately, I picked like the buggy whip maker kind of profession because no one's a projectionist anymore because everything's digital. But my point is, advice to an 18-year-old or to my 18-year-old self would be, make sure that you have some kind of skill that you can do no matter what. Like the grid goes out, well, maybe electricians can't do anything then, but learn something that you can always make a buck at or fall back on or whatever. I don't care if it's gambling. I don't care if it's, getting your commercial driver's license and being able to drive a big rig or something. I don't know. But it's something that's helped me through my life, being able to fall back on something where I could just get a job like that because I was super good at it.
But Mike, you did that. So
no, I know.
Why is that your advice to your 18-year-old self if you already did that?
Because I did it. I did it by accident, and it's not really a trade. I mean, it used to be. I mean, I kind of just accidentally did that. But I think something that would be a little more, maybe a little more lucrative. And again, it doesn't have to be what you do for the rest of your life. But I think it's getting a little better now. But for a number of years, I work in construction management and stuff. And for years, I was seeing how learning a trade was really not something that people talked about or respected or, really went into. It was considered like, blue collar work or beneath people or whatever. And I think it's just the opposite. I know a lot of very happy, very successful plumbers and electricians and masons that don't work 80 hours a week, and have successful careers. So again, that was one thing. I'll kind of hand it off to one of you guys. I have more to say about, advice, but that would be like one of the first things. And I don't know if there's a comparable thing for girls. Maybe there is. I don't know.
Probably not giving it up to that one guy.
Well, no, I mean, as far as like a trade, like learning, becoming skilled in something, that you can always do, that you don't need to have a diploma for or whatever, a cook, being a cook, maybe a chef. I don't know.
No, cosmetology school is probably what most of them say.
Well, what jobs did you guys get coming out of high school? Either whether if you went to college and got a job part-time or just went right into the workforce, like what did you guys do? Or what were you thinking at that time?
Well, I always jump in first, so one of you guys do it this time.
Good.
So I went right into college. I know I was thinking of military because I'd started reaching out to them, and then they, how the recruiters are, they start, coming after you. I had the Air Force and I think Navy and Army were coming after me.
Not a chance.
Seriously considering that, but I ended up doing college first. I mean, it's maybe a little regret there. You always say that regret is usually not the things that you did that you're going to regret, but it's the things that you didn't do.
Oh,
right. Yeah. And for me, maybe I would have liked to have had a military career or a stint. I would have liked that for my life. It's a little late now, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
But I went right into college and kind of floundered. Michael. Kind of floundered after coming out of college, like a lot of people do. You just kind of bounce around with jobs that don't have anything to do with your area of expertise. But I did eventually get like the degree in computer programming. So that was my kind of, fallback thing that I had. I still didn't go down that path completely, but it was always there. I had that in my back pocket if I needed it.
Yeah, but, I think the military is a fantastic idea for a lot of people, and it's not something I really put a lot of thought into myself because I had all this like crazy operations I had to have on my leg, and so they probably wouldn't have taken me. But honestly, I never even really gave it a lot of consideration, even though a lot of the men in my family had been, I mean, most of my cousins, all my uncles had been in the military. And now, being older is just, it's something that has so many benefits. I'm not talking about necessarily just financial benefits, but there's really not many people I know. Look at Zeus, man. You got to go next. There's not many people I know that really regret it. It's
the military.
Yeah. What do you think?
Oh my gosh.
Well, what's your story, Pretzel
You're not
Man?
gonna catch me joining the military.
But you were.
I'm just kidding. I don't regret it, but I'm glad that I left early. I got what I needed out of it, which was a little discipline, a little perspective. Got kind of jacked for a while. I mean, I wish I could find the pictures. It was like 8-pack, all muscles on my arms showing. It's pretty cool.
Nice. What branch?
Army.
Okay.
But yeah, I was kind of I wasn't aroused about it or anything. Basically, I just left my parents' house and would go spend weekends upon weekends upon weekends and several weekdays over at my friend's house. Basically lived there. We just partied all the time. I dropped out of high school. And then I was telling somebody at work about this. Probably the best thing my parents ever did was one of these times when I took off, I came back to the house and they were gone. They moved. They didn't move out of state or anything like that. And they kept the phone number. It wasn't like they made themselves unfindable.
Right. They were
and I knew where my mom worked, where my dad worked. It was a little, yeah. What do you think about this? Right.
Wow.
And,
But they left the house, the place for you to live.
They literally left the home and they left my stuff out on the balcony.
Nice.
So I get there and these kids that I knew down the block, they came and they saw my stuff there and they stole a bunch of shit. It was a life lesson. And I'm fine with it. It was probably what was needed to be done. But then
that's some tough love.
What's that?
That's tough love.
It is. My parents were tough, but they were good people. So then shortly after that, I went and joined the Army, got my GED while I was in the Army, got completely lied to by recruiters, which is the worst part about it, because they unless you got a college degree, they're just going to dump you wherever they can place you, and they'll tell you whatever they can to get you to join. And yeah, they rope a dope for me.
Yeah.
But
no,
it was cool. Basic training. I ended up being a platoon guide because our drill sergeant's wife got very, very sick, and I just took a leadership role.
So wait, you were like Joker?
Yeah.
From Full Metal Jacket.
Yeah. Joker.
Yeah, Full Metal Jacket.
I mean, put my taking my M16 apart and put it back together with my eyes closed. I was hardcore. I got 36 out of 40 on the firing range. It was something I was good at, but I should have just gone more grunt, or something more combat ready, because I went for machinist and I failed it, and by the time I failed that, I was just jaded. I was just this is getting paid to be in prison. You can't do a lot of things, you can't go out drinking. You're 18, but and you're able to die for your country, but you can't go out and have a beer. So I was just screw this. And
wow, so you left the Army for drinking?
Well, no, it wasn't that. It's just that everything, you were restricted on so many things.
I'm only fucking with you, sis.
No, I know.
But but do you look at it? And I know it's hard to.
It made me better. It made me.
Yeah, I mean, so overall, you're happy that you did it. I mean,
I'm happy I did that. Now not using my GI Bill and all that, and going to school. and I just kind of wandered the earth for a really long time. I was good at sales, so I could always find a sales job.
Another
Your
good
parents
trait.
are kind of like Joe Biden. They just
What's that?
abandon you. Your parents are like Joe Biden. They just abandon you.
No, one of them's dead, so
You're lucky they didn't leave you in Afghanistan.
Yeah,
yeah, no shit.
behind enemy lines, man.
They got me to join up, and then they bailed out of the country and left me there.
I
I've
tell
told
you,
you guys my
Yeah.
told you guys my theory on immigration, right? How we solve it.
how
No.
We let everybody come to America and, be part of the United States, but they have to serve 4 years in the army. And then what we do is we attack Mexico, and then we just leave them there.
Well, I hope they do better than the Afghan army.
there's a lot of immigrants that serve in the military that aren't U.S. citizens. I never realized that. I read about this a few years ago. I was astounded. I mean, it's really kind of impressive. I mean, I feel like if you serve 4 years in the armed forces, you should go right to the front of the line, man.
Yeah,
I mean, that's
yeah.
I mean, part of that. I mean, the part about leaving them there is the joke, but honestly, I think that would be like a really smart thing to do.
It's hard to argue. Yeah, I mean, that's pretty serious, right?
Yeah, but
there's
then-
a lot of people that don't do that are citizens, like this guy. So
they're not coming here to join the service.
Well, that's the thing. If you got an easy route or you got the hard route, maybe more of them will take the easy route. And they come here getting a job that's not just, cleaning bathrooms or lawn work, you know what I mean? Like something real, something that you can, make a life out of.
Well, you got to push that to your congressman, Zeus.
When Mike and I run for president in 2024, Wilkes Allen, 2024.
Yeah, we have how many subscribers do we have? 25.
Well, when we start our campaigning, it's really going to ramp up.
It's not about the votes. It's who counts the votes. We're going to be fine.
Legalize it.
Yeah.
So your campaign pledge is going to be that you're going to abandon even more people than Joe Biden. That's your promise.
I'm going to make it so that if you're a Democrat, you have to join the military, and then we're going to fight Mexico, and I'm going to leave them there. And I'm a Democrat.
No matter what.
I mean, I definitely lean Democrat, and that really sucks that I'm ready to do that. But
you'd have to build a wall.
Right now.
You'd have to build a wall to make sure they don't come back. So.
No lasers.
So
Lasers.
before we move
Sharks
on,
with lasers.
before we move on to Jack and Dana, I find it interesting that in the first three of
Jack and Dana. Sorry.
Before it's in the first three of us, I mean, Tom mentioned, Jack mentioned, or Zeus mentioned, and I didn't really get into it, but we definitely all three kind of wandered around a little bit at that time, right? I mean, is that just a fait accompli of that age? I guess.
No, I was
Jack,
like 30.
You guys.
No,
I think stretch. It can stretch, right?
I think that's.
Let's put it this way. I'm just now a nurse for 4 years. I'm 50.
It can take some time.
Yeah.
Anyway, you're up, Jack.
I was seasoned.
Yeah, no, I was just gonna say that's the Gen X curse, is that we were on our own so young because mom and dad were working hard, and
that's true.
And we had cable, and we had
MTV.
music. And we kind of did our own thing, and all of a sudden you were 18, and it was like, okay, you're 18.
And a life to go.
Yeah, and so you kind of just figured it out. I don't know. I thought about this. I mean, Dana and I were talking about it this weekend, actually, right, Dana?
Yeah.
Yeah, and I had
That's crazy that this is the topic.
Yeah, we were talking about 3 wishes, and one of the ones that I had, in addition to some really cool, fun stuff, unattainable wealth, bazillions of dollars, and immortality, and being able to be impervious to physical harm, was to be 18 again, knowing what I know now. And I wrote some things down, and they're kind of, some of them feel silly,
Mhm.
and they're not like invest in Apple or anything like that. Like, I mean, they're not nothing like that, but it's more about way of thinking.
Right.
And some of them are practical. Like, I'm trying to like go through my life in my head, because at 18, I went to like a good high school, Catholic elementary school, Catholic high school, and no one in my family ever graduated college. And so it was like
Yeah, I was the same.
yeah, it was a string of firemen, my dad, his dad, and a lot of school teachers and nurses. My mom was a nurse. My grandmother was a school administrator. And very blue collar town, right, Dane? I mean, it just was what it was. It was a lot of lunch pail mom and dads. And so to get into college was like this big thing. And so it was kind of an expectation of you're going, while sprinkling little advice and little like, when you're young and old people talk and you just kind of tune them out, because
Yeah.
you don't.
That's
you
probably
don't-
happening a lot right now with our viewers.
I
No.
think,
They're not even tuning us out.
That explains it.
yeah, they're just not. They're
It's
just not
complete ignorance.
tuning in. But the flashing signal was go to college, and so I did that. But even once you get through that 4-year academic life, and mine was really a lot of beer and academic life. Like, it was fun. It was a great learning experience. Like, I made friends I still have. And
Yeah,
well,
like
no, but when I got out, Zeus, and you can speak to this too. When I got out, it was kind of like
that's around when
Tom.
we met.
It was like Tom talked about. It was just like, well, what now?
Mhm.
Like, what do I do now? I have this English major, which, that and 50 cents gets you a cup of coffee. You know what I mean? Like, what do you do with that?
Right.
Unless you go back to school, but at that
Everything you
age,
say sounds old, Jack.
Where are
No.
you getting a cup of coffee for 50 cents?
Yeah, no shit.
What is this,
Back
my
when
age
you were a
in
kid.
1987?
Paul.
well, I went to college in 1989, so I'm close. But
You 18? You were
You're having a
definitely
cup of coffee. Or
No.
betting 50 cents about you.
Uh,
Never
I'm
mind.
I'm trying to sound like a 50-year-old now with old like quips that make no sense.
You're doing
Yeah.
like gangbusters.
Before.
Oh, I just said gangbuster, so I'm just as bad.
No, but
Except any wooden nickels.
you get out and you're trying to figure it out, and like Tom said, you're going from one job to another, and you're just trying to get that so many dollars an hour into your account, because there's only so many meals you can have at mom and dad's. And I took off because like I went from Hoboken, New Jersey to Boston College to Arlington, Virginia, which is where I met Zeus, right? Zeus, you were the sales guy.
I was your boss.
You were my boss.
Wow.
Beer.
I was
Yeah.
actually
Oh, my.
like one of the big bosses there. I was doing pretty good at 21 or 22. It was a shit company, but I mean, I was one of the guys in charge.
Yeah, no, Zeus was like Michael from The Office.
That's what she said.
Yeah, a lot of inappropriate comments that he thought were funny, and everybody cringed.
And I was like sleeping with my employees.
This is being
the good
recorded,
old
You too?
woke days.
Yeah,
You're
it was
sleeping
us.
with
Tom.
Jack?
Yeah, it was us.
Yes.
Oh man,
All
I
the
knew
time.
it. I knew it.
Yeah,
Violated him in every way possible.
No, but we became friends.
He's a little fella.
We became friends, and now it's platonic.
Yeah,
Okay.
All right,
it's just
we're
no
good.
longer sexual.
We're good. Yeah, no, we learned a lot.
Every once in a while, you'll see a little knowing glance if you pay attention to the show, but outside of that,
Everything's
But
good.
but no, just in terms of practicality, like I remember in my, and this is like I wrote a bunch of shit down, but I remember in my 20s when I had money, I spent money. And I remember like when I was a teenager, I collected comic books and I collected like music. Like I loved going and buying records and t-shirts. Dana remembers that, right? And that was about it. Like as long as I was working, I had more money than I was spending. Like I wasn't dumb about it.
Yeah.
And I think in my 20s I exploded and I was spending all the disposable income that I had on stupid shit. And I think if
CDs, tons of CDs.
no CDs, VHS tapes. Remember VHS tapes?
Wow.
I was like,
This is the
gonna,
Jack. This is the
No.
Zeus Jack.
I'm gonna have a collection. I'm gonna collect like archaic VHS tapes and CDs and posters and memorabilia, and or I'm gonna go to restaurants and buy sandwiches all the time, like cigarettes, obviously. We were drinking a lot, like
Oh
it
my
was-
God, were we drinking a lot?
oh my God. So I just feel like for every dime that I made, I didn't squirrel. Like there's that old, what is it? Children's fable. I think it's the grasshopper and
And
the
the
ant.
ants.
And I was Mr. Grasshopper. Like I was just blowing through money.
Hmm.
And I wish someone had just said, dummy, you're gonna
Oh my
throw
God,
that, you're gonna throw this shit away. And I think about that because I'm like, I could use an extra couple of grand right now and have it toward a car or buy my girlfriend something nice or go on a vacation. And that's just one stupid thing. Like I could go through the whole list. I don't want to
Yeah.
dominate. I don't want to dominate all the time.
Well, we're kind of going around, and I can identify with that too, Jack. I very similar. I mean, I would get paid. I was, like I'd said before, I always fell back on movie theaters, even though I went to school for computer science and then communications and psychology.
Psychology, right?
Yeah, that's what I ended up with, because I was like, this computer science stuff freaking sucks.
Yeah.
Like it's boring.
Yeah.
Like meanwhile, it's like 1990, the exact time you want to be taking computer science, right? But anyway, but yeah, I mean, when I was like managing theaters and stuff like that, and I was like barely older than the kids I was managing and making decent money, and like I was like, you know what, I want a convertible, and like I went and bought a convertible, and it's like I didn't save nothing. I was like, but
Yeah.
I don't know if I regret it because I had a freaking blast. But yeah,
Yeah,
it would be nice to have that money back.
That's the thing about it. Like at the end of it all, I kind of, whatever I did led me to where I am now. So is it that bad? I mean, there's few things I might change. Like I wish I would have gone to school earlier. If I could go back and do the one thing to change, it would be keep digging this psych stuff and become a nurse, or go to school for psych and follow through, because I love my job. Love my job.
See, Zeus, I'm the opposite. I wrote it down. I wrote put off college. I wrote put off college, join civil service. I swear to God, I'd be
He
retired.
says it all the time.
I'd be retired. And then you guys touched on the military.
Oh yeah.
Like,
Mhm.
I mean, I had an opportunity to do that at 30 because I went to law school after just flitting around for almost a decade. Because suddenly I had a kid, and I was like, I need to be my own boss. I'm going to law school. And I remember the JAG recruiters for the Army and the Air Force coming to law school. And I had a buddy who joined the Air Force right under the cutoff. Like he joined at 35. He was a civil engineer. He got to buy a house.
Does that mean he was really polite?
Yeah, he was super polite. Yeah, no, but he was he was he was
Wait a
really
minute.
good.
No,
Let
clearly you put
Zeus
the building
enjoy
together
his
like
own
this,
joke for a
sir.
second.
I know. Hey,
Oh my gosh.
no, I'm enjoying the fact that Zeus from like 30, 40 years ago looks really cool.
I was
And
clearly
we get
I would
them
go back
now.
and remind myself that I should be a male model.
Yeah.
Look at the pensive look.
Yeah, that's good stuff. Yeah,
I think I was probably not wearing pants.
that makes a lot of sense. Makes a lot of sense. Yeah,
Yeah,
Zeus,
I got a really good one. I got
That
a good
was-
one of me farting in my sister's face. Hold on a second.
But no, to Jack's point with the civil service, I mean, there's a lot of guys that are and women who are late 40s, early 50s who are retiring
Yeah.
from 20
And
years
there it is.
in the military and getting jobs with contractors, collecting a pension. And I mean, I know a ton of people that did that.
Well, also, Mike, I thought about it. My dad and my grandfather were firemen here in Hoboken, and Dana and I know a lot of police officers, or guys that retired already, and firemen as well. My first cousin is in his 30s. He's a fireman, and it's not a bad gig. There's a lot of benefits to it, and the fact that you can go to college while you're doing it.
Yeah.
You can go to college after. And I thought about the military because my buddy Ted lived on a military base. So he and his new baby and his wife had free housing. They had free everything for his first tour. And then his second tour, he was able to get out of the military and be a civilian working at the station where they launched the space shuttles, Cape Canaveral.
Mhm.
He never had to go abroad. He was able to switch a 30-year mortgage to a 15-year mortgage, get a boat, get a pool. And, I don't know about their marriage right now. I haven't talked to him in a while. But, I mean, the guy, he was floundering for, a good 14 years. And he was like an engineer. He went from like a factory to whatever random job he came across in Florida, which is a right to work state, which means good luck. And
It's funny. There's a lot of common threads between us because
Yeah.
I also looked into doing police. At one point, I remember I wanted to be a Maryland State Trooper, and you go to the bookstore and you get that fat book. It's like an inch thick, where you study for the exam to be the Maryland State Trooper. So I was considering that as well. That's funny that we've all got like these threads.
Well, the funny thing about that is when I joined the military, that's what they promised me that. Well, I wanted to be military police, maybe parlay that into like Secret Service, something like that. I had lofty goals. And then I met Barley and Hops, and that changed everything. There's probably some bong resin involved there too, but
well, we can get to that if you want, Zeus. That's a big one.
Well,
What's that?
So Dana, what's Dana's intro into this?
yeah. She used to be a man.
On the 18th birthday, I moved out of my parents' house and I never came back.
Wow.
And I always said that's what I was gonna do. And because my mother had this thing where she would, scream, rant, rave, whatever she did, and would say, as long as you're under my roof and all this.
Right.
And I would tell her the day I turn 18, I'm out of here. And that's exactly what I did. I never looked back. I kept my own head above water. I made a ton of money because I started out serving, as a server, restaurant business in Hoboken. Went right into bartending, and I was making so much cash, and drinking a lot because at the end of the night, they're buying you drinks. I don't know how it's like a big blur or whatever, but I know I had been making an exuberant amount of cash that paid my own rent. I had my own car. I was paying tuition in cash at Rutgers in New
Wow.
Brunswick.
Wow.
Jesus.
There, like I said, you know what? I'm gonna hire a helicopter. I'm gonna pay them in pennies. Because I was sitting there with like singles sometimes, you know.
That's a great trade
first
too. Like when we were talking about trades, I think bartending is a fantastic skill.
Oh,
You
yeah.
can always find a job if you're a good. Anyway,
Well, you know, believe it or not, don't even joke. Like the whole bartending, waitressing thing.
Dana, if I
served
may,
me well,
I don't think you're
Yeah.
just joking.
no, we're not.
I
I'm
think
being
you're
serious.
serious.
I'm being
Earlier on,
dead serious.
before you guys came on, we were talking about like learning, like the advice we give ourselves is like to learn some kind of trade that you can always make money on, no matter where you are or what you're doing or how old you are. And bartending is one of them that we didn't think of, but that's a
Well,
great.
that's like nursing. I wish I would have gotten
And
into
it
nursing earlier.
was hand-eye coordination, it was time management, and I'd be, you know, those skills transferred over into nursing on the floor. Excellent.
Don't forget free booze.
And people
Yeah.
skills, man.
Tons
Totally
of people still. We're crazy people.
Yeah.
Drunk people.
Yeah.
Drunk people.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, drunk people.
But if I to go back to what Jackie was saying, I wish I would have saved some of it or invested some of it wisely.
Yeah.
I really kind of paid my nut, which was high because I had my own bills like a real adult, you know, at a young adult age. And then I partied with the rest. And like, you know, if I wanted, you know, whatever I wanted, I bought it, you know.
Well,
So-
and if I may, you were in Hoboken, so you probably didn't have a car, did you?
I did have a car.
Oh,
You
wow.
did, huh?
I did have a
No,
car
no,
because I
it
worked
just
in
seems like a lot
Hoboken.
of people I know from New York didn't have a car.
Well,
'Cause
I
it was
worked in
just-
Hoboken and I went to school in New Brunswick.
Okay.
And I was going back and forth for a while because I lived in Hoboken and worked there and schooled out in New Brunswick. Then I decided that that was shit. And so I moved in with my aunt who lived in Piscataway. So I only had like a 15-minute commute and I got a job bartending at a restaurant down there and in the New Brunswick Piscataway area, still doing like a lot of cash. I wish I would have saved and invested some of it. That's for sure. Did I have fun? Like you're saying, no regrets. I eventually got where I am. And that's just more of like the practical living piece. The other thing I was thinking about is that I wish that I would have loved myself better, younger.
Mhm.
Like truly. I wish that I would have truly had the self-love that I have as an adult at 18, because so much decision making would have been different and it would have benefited me better. And I just did things and I participated in things, you know, and I found myself in situations that I could have avoided had I had.
He's right here. Don't say it right in front of him, okay?
No, he knows everything about me.
It's-
He knows all the details.
It's funny
But
that
I
you
think that I could have averted. All that could have been averted.
Exactly.
You know, I mean, I have a teenage daughter and she's 16 now. And if I could get her to a place where, you know, she feels like she's enough and she values herself and she knows how to think of herself in terms of first and what's best for her and take care of herself and participate in self-care and self-love and have priorities straight. I didn't have my priorities straight. I didn't. And so I suffered and I did that thing where I wasn't a nurse until I was fucking 30.
yeah.
You
It's
know, I
funny.
had that lab.
I mean, Jack pointed out, and I don't know what the items are, but that, you know, he had made this list of things. And I did, I mean, for this show and just in conversations I've had, I mean, the first one was about learning a trade, but the other thing I wrote was trust your gut. Like, you know, I ignored my inner like alarm bells and gut until I was like 40 years old. Like I just didn't. I always thought there was someone else that was more of an expert. And then the other thing was, and someone had to teach me this. Someone had to teach me this, but surround yourself with quality people. Like don't waste your time with people that are like dragging you down or aren't a good influence on you. I mean, you can still be friends with them and go out and hang out, but don't you have to get people around yourself that are, if not like-minded, but or at least like going the right direction to an extent. And that took me a long time.
They say that, that you become the 5 closest people to you.
Exactly.
So if that's true, and if I plug myself in at 18, 19,
right.
No wonder it took me so long to arrive.
I still have confidence issues, and pragmatically speaking, outside looking in, I'm working on I'm one class away from getting my 3rd round in school. I mean, I'm working a job. I'll probably make 100 this year, which is not bad. It's not great. I got 2 kids. I own a home. I should feel better about decisions I make, but I still have a hard time being bold. I mean, if it comes to being humorous or talking, having deep conversations, things like that, I'm good with that. I mean, but making those bold decisions, I still have a problem. And when I was young, I think it's the curse of being that person that was 20 in their 90s. It's we all have in one way, shape, or form, a way that maybe our parents didn't abandon us, but it was a different world where they kind of throw you in the water and see if you swim. And well, if you know anything about borderlines, it's all about abandonment, that kind of trauma. And I think that's why we are all of us successful in some ways and question ourselves still to this day on other things. Just my thoughts on it. I don't know.
That's everybody.
Yeah,
I mean, pretty much everybody.
I still don't get life.
I joke. I do still joke about this.
There's 2 Danas. It's the prettiest we've ever had this show.
When people talk about leaving home or whatever, in May of 90, I graduated from high school, and
you graduated from high school? What was that like?
Yeah. And about 2 months before, my mom's parents, my maternal grandparents, were in this really bad car wreck, and my grandfather ended up dying, and my grandmother was really badly, hurt and everything. She never really fully recovered. She lived for another 20 years or so. No, 10 years. Yeah. But anyway, my parents, so this is May of 90. I graduate from high school. My parents put the house on the market and moved 4 hours away to where my
Did
grandmother.
Did they tell you they were moving?
Well, it was literally over spaghetti. We're moving, and a week later, there's a moving van, and they took all the furniture from the house, and they're like,
"Wow,
you can stay here," because I was going to Drexel in the fall, and so I had a mattress on the floor and a pile of clothes, and the house was on the market, and the real estate agent would call the house line. This is before cell phones, and be like, okay, and normally she got the answer machine because I never answered the phone. Michael, I'm bringing some people over, and there'd be 6 friends of mine sleeping over, and beer cans or whatever everywhere. So it's mad that that was the whole summer. So they left, and I was I got the school in the fall, and people are yeah, man, it's so weird being out of the house. I'm my parents left me, man. They were gone, But anyway, but it is interesting how it is, with Dana, she rolled, with me, my parents rolled, but whatever, it's a time where there is this disconnect that happens, whatever, right? And there's this floundering, and there's this newly found income thing going on or whatever. Mm-hmm. And this is I didn't know that we all had some, not identical, but similar kind of, not in the same order, but similar kind of experiences like this. I
Yeah.
guess it's part of the age. But
That's one that I didn't have a situation where my parents up and left or
where you
That
but
didn't
you
happen.
left probably. I mean,
well, later in my mid-20s, I think I got an apartment and moved out, but my dad passed away probably about 2 to 3 years after I graduated high school.
mm,
He passed away, and so it was just my mom, and she was working nights, so she was sleeping all day, so you didn't see her. So it was kind of like
wow.
they weren't there almost,
Yeah.
but so it's something like that. But I mean, yeah, I didn't feel like an abandonment or anything, or so that's we're a little bit different in that sense.
Yeah, I didn't really feel abandoned, but I think part of it, and I don't know because my daughter's young still, she's not a teenager or anything, but I think when I was the youngest, and so by the time I graduated from high school, my parents were done.
Right.
They were
just
done.
done.
Like they were like. So I think there's that dynamic too. I think parents are like, especially if you're the youngest, but in general, they're like, man, just go, like, or whatever. In some respect, I mean, I think there's that thing going on. They don't expect you home, even if you're still living at home. They're probably not expecting you home at any certain time. I don't know. I mean, everyone has a different experience, but
Yeah, I was the youngest also, out of four, but the oldest two had already gone by that time frame. So,
were you an early child, Dana, or do you have older or younger siblings?
I'm an only child.
Gotcha. So you were the one. Yeah.
It was me.
I've got an older sister.
Yeah, I've got
I
one.
think it seems to be normal, and maybe Dana can attest to it, but I think girls have this sort of animosity with their moms during the teenage years a lot. It seems to be a common thing.
I made sure that my daughter and I don't.
Right.
Yeah,
And
Yeah.
I knew how to avert that because I did have that with my mom, and I knew what not to do, and I knew what to do. That my daughter and I, she cast an attitude. She's 16, but ultimately we have a very good relationship.
No,
and we enjoy each other's company.
You guys are like
huge.
best friends.
He still holds my hand in public.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
That's really cool.
Wow.
She'll
Can
be
you give me like
talking
what's one good tip?
Mike and I still
I've
hold
got like
hands
a
in public.
9-year-old daughter, so she's getting there. So what should we do?
What's the best thing I could tell you?
Sex will kill you.
I always kept my communication line with her open, and I chose to not be a yeller like my mom was, because
I've already screwed that up.
Yeah, I'm a yeller.
So I never yelled. I not that I never did. I have, but I wouldn't consider myself a yeller per se, because
so you're the calm Sicilian? Okay.
My mom is Irish.
Yeah. Okay. Oh yeah, that just makes you sound more reasonable.
Yeah.
I'm not buying it.
I think trust is a big. What?
I think Dana's saying she's not a yeller. This is one of those like matter of perspective, like her yelling and our yelling
I
are
can
different
yell.
types of yelling.
I can, but in my parenting, I try to control myself.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you do.
And I try to give her a space to be a person.
Right.
I've seen Dana in action, and when her daughter acts like a 16-year-old, like kind of snotty, Dana will look at me with the eye roll, and then talk to her later. And that's the best advice right there. Is just
so that's just so that you can't disprove that she doesn't yell.
Well, yeah. Think of it like nuclear war or like tactical war. You don't want to have a disproportionate reaction to something. which is very hard to do as a parent when your kid is like trying to light himself on fire. But at the same time, when they're teenagers and they're just being jackasses, you just kind of calmly put them straight.
Did you
Technically,
guys?
if you say
You know
they're
what's
teenagers,
helpful?
you don't have to say they're being jackasses.
Tom, you know what's helpful? Growing up, instead of doing like the timeout, when my daughter was having a hard time or whatever, I always looked at it this: she's not giving me a hard time; she's having a hard time. So I would stop everything and I would do what I called time in, and I would say, "Come here," and we would relax, and I say, "What's the matter? Tell
Why
me
are
what
you
you
acting like such an asshole?
you know," and giving her that.
Wait, I want to hear this. Zeus. I want to hear that. Damn, I'm sorry.
It worked. It over time, consistently. I think that's what worked for me and her.
Right.
Yeah.
That sounds. That is she
Yeah,
the
see-
only child? Your daughter?
She is.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
She's
She
the only
is.
child she knows
Her
of.
dad. Her dad and I divorced when she was 5. So, and she's very, very close to him to this day. Like, she's
That's good.
totally a daddy's girl. And we split her time between us equally. He's not like a weekend dad. He's like an every other day dad, and bring her to school every day dad. And every day at some point they're together. And
They have the perfect divorce.
That's awesome. Yeah.
it's like the best ex-husband ever, you know?
Yeah.
But we did that for her because we put her first. It's not about us. If we're arguing, then we're making it about us. See, everything is about our daughter, so there's no need for us to argue.
I think I can do this. What I see already from my daughter, and she's very young, but when she talks to my wife, it's different. She snaps and yells at my wife. But with me, I don't know what it is. It's maybe my approach. I have that approach that you're trying to explain to us, where you just kind of try to understand their point of view and that sort of thing. So I think I can do that. I don't know. My wife is in trouble, I think.
Hey, Tom, how many kids do you have?
3.
Oh boy, yeah.
And that's part of the problem. See, the only child you can kind of focus on that one. Like, I got in trouble yesterday because I yelled at the 4-year-old because I was trying to do homework with the 12-year-old, and he came in and interrupted, and I yelled at him to go away, and so he started crying, and my wife got mad that I yelled at him. So having 3, it's it's hard to dedicate time to all 3 of them.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Go ahead. I was gonna say I can sort of relate, but I have almost the exact dynamic that me and my sister had. Of my boys are like several years apart. One's 12, one's 5. So there's kind of your dynamic, but then you got a whole nother child thrown in there just as an X factor. But yeah, just with my boys, it's like the one is just boisterous and just a complete lunatic all the time, and his brother taught him how to pester and badger him unknowingly. And Max, who I'd say of all of y'all, Mike knows the best. Max is just a pisser, man. He's like so funny. Like,
he's so sweet, man. He's such a sweet kid.
Yeah, but he's also very naughty. like
I don't see that side as much. Every time I see him, he's just like the sweetest kid.
He is.
Boy.
Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
Nothing makes me sadder quicker than when I have yelled at him and he starts crying, and he doesn't. It's not like he just starts bawling right there. It's like a.
I hate that.
Oh my God! I think they do it on purpose.
No, they totally do.
I think it's a mutant skill.
Yeah, they do.
Like, man, I just go. I have. That's when I steal up and I'm like, I'm not watching. I'm walking away. You cry. You need to cry. This is a crying moment.
But
I'm
it's
not
weird.
I'm
No,
not the Dana dad. I'm the I brought you into this world. I can take you out, dad.
But isn't
Yeah.
it weird how you take things from your own parental experience, like your own parents, and there's things you're like, you know what, I'm going to do that, and there's other things you're like, I'm definitely not
I'll
going to
never
do
do
that.
that. Right.
Oh,
You know,
how
and
about the I'll never do this when I'm a parent, and everything that you said you weren't going to do, you do.
No, even worse. Phrases come out of your mouth that you haven't even thought about in 40 years.
Yeah.
Oh, like you're a pain, but I can't see through you, like those kind of ones.
Whatever that just comes out, and you're like, God damn.
I have this bad tendency of being like, you know, even though my daughter's young, like I don't even know. I don't know. I think that she is more sophisticated sometimes than she is. And so she says things and I'm like, really? And then it's like, like button heads, like, you know,
Right.
and I'm like,
And then you go,
Oh,
I'm
you
arguing
know
with a
that.
4-year-old.
I'm sorry?
How old is she?
6. She's 6. So I'm like, and then I have to check myself back. I'm like, she's just a little kid. But I remember when I was 6. I remember clearly when I was 6. And I knew, I mean, my memory of when I was 6, I kind of knew what was going on. But it's hard. I mean, my thing is when she was born, I was like, you know, the one thing that I'm going to stress is trust. Like, I want her, when I say something, she can take it to the bank. And I've failed on that sometimes, but most of the time I don't. And it, because to me, I'm like, you know, the old adage of like, you're not raising a girl, you're raising a woman, right? So I want her to understand that I have her best interest that she can trust me. So I'm like, if I can teach her anything, it's to be able to trust me on what I'm saying.
I
Because,
agree. You have to be able to follow through on what you're saying.
yeah.
Yeah, I'm not good at
And
that
hold it
one
up.
either.
It works, and you only have to do it like a couple of times consistently, and then they fear it because then they're like, "Oh, this girl means business." So
Mhm.
I established early on follow through, even if it killed me. I remember one time my daughter was acting up. She was real little. She was like 5, and there was this beautiful birthday party that I pulled her from. I was like, "Nope, you're not going. I told you the 3rd time you will not go." It killed me that she wasn't going to this party because it was a great little birthday party. She sobbed for hours. I didn't care. I was like, gotta
It's
stick
hard.
with it.
Yeah, it's
I
hard.
can't leave because I put that out there. And now I have to stick with it. And I did. But you know what? That was very long lasting because that made
She knew
such
you meant business.
impression on her. She didn't mess with me from there on in because she knew that I would follow through.
Yeah.
I never did.
And I think that takes the place of like corporal punishment and yelling because those things I found to be like more effective.
Yeah,
I went through a phase.
I tried to follow through with like threats, and then I'd give them like an hour, and then it was like, all right, here's your 3DS back.
Yeah, but then they think it's a joke and they can get away with anything they want.
I'm
still
not
remember.
I'm not proud of it, Dave.
This was not a long time ago because my daughter's only 6, but I remember leaving
Back
the
when she was a
hospital,
kid.
leaving the hospital with her, and I was like, "Are you like? I just take her." Like I'm just taking her home now. Like,
Yeah.
like there's. I mean, I read
You're gonna
owner's
let me
manuals.
walk out of here with this
for-
child.
I read owner's manuals for like a faucet, right? And there's no manual, and I'm like, it just shocked me. I was like, I can't believe they just let you walk out of here with your kid, and there's no lesson, you know, and you just got to figure it out. And so I just relied on what my parents did. I mean, and things that I liked and things I didn't like, you know, and it's fraught, right? Isn't it fraught? And your parents probably did the same thing.
Right.
I don't know.
They did.
It's crazy.
Well, wait a minute, Mike. You know, at that age too, you're relying on the women in your life.
Oh yeah, big time.
Oh yeah, Max and Ollie would be dead now if it was just me.
No, I mean, you're. I remember, like in the baby stage, you're just dad. If they give you like an hour, to hold and change a diaper, and
you're hating it.
No, you love it.
I
You
loved
love
it, man. I loved it. I was
I
like,
love. I
if
love.
I got
Such a
a
bad
hug,
parent.
it lasted me like a month. You know what I mean? I was
loved it.
like, oh
I
man.
loved it, but then it was off to grandma and my ex-wife and whoever else knew what the hell they were doing with this little thing. And then they'd get them all dressed and pretty and smelling good. And yay, it's daddy's time, and let's watch TV. You know what I mean? It was just, it's ridiculous.
See,
It's ridiculous.
I do this. I do.
Hey, whoa,
My-
look at this guy.
Is that a cicada?
Yeah.
What is that a katydid?
It's alive.
Is that a katydid?
Where did you get that?
I got from upstairs. I was like waiting.
That was inside the house.
Yeah. I don't know how to.
Don't let go of it.
Get rid
What
of
is
it, Tom.
Oh my
Let
God.
go of it, Michael. Let go of it.
Do not let go of it.
Throw
Well,
it up in the air and let it fly.
Well, here's the
Hang
thing, and
Don't hold
this
it
is
back.
it's kind of coming back around to the topic
That's
where I was
awesome.
like, advice you would give your 18-year-old self, because one of the other things I wrote down, I still want to hear your other things, Jack, but I wrote, and something I've kind of just learned in my life, one, accountability is huge. Like, you have to be able to look back on your own life and be accountable to yourself, at
Yeah, no
least,
shit.
right? And the other thing is, you have to learn how to give yourself advice and kind of take care of yourself before you can take care of other people or dare to give other people advice. And that includes, your children. And you, I think you owe it to them and other young people in your life, nieces, nephews, neighbors or whatever, to, if you are someone that's in their life and they're of that age, to be thoughtful of what you teach them and what you show them and the example you provide for them. It's so important. I mean, the other thing that I was going to get into with this is, like, friends, like when you were that age, teenager up to 18 or whatever, the family members, brothers, sisters, parents of your friends, and like the influence they had and like the example they provided. I mean, I don't know. I had some very close friends. I had some of their parents were cool. Some were very close, some, not at all. Brothers, sisters of friends and things like that. And like the example that they were able to provide. And that was very crucial. I mean, I learned a lot from those people. But anyway, it's just something I'm aware of. Like when I'm around kids, like I have 4 nephews. They're all teenagers right now. And I take being an uncle like super seriously. Like I try to be very thoughtful with how I engage with them, because I know what they're going through. Like I know the age they're in. And I had great uncles. I had my uncles were fantastic. So I try to be a good example, for them. But it takes preparation, it takes thought, it takes purpose, it takes like being accountable to do that,
See, my family grew up in Pimment Hills. Anybody familiar with Pimment Hills?
That sounds
It's like the West Virginia of Tyson's.
I know where it is. Yep.
So I my interactions with my uncles was like,
So wait, like figure 8s in the lawn kind of thing?
yeah, riding around
Not
on
like
the
that now.
lawnmowers through the neighborhood. My interactions with probably my favorite uncle is Quentin. I don't know if any of you, Tom might have met Quentin at a party that I had. He and I would, for instance, there was a storm one night and we sat out on his front lawn. It's just pouring rain, just like buckets. And we're cowboy styling a bottle of Evan Williams. Familiar with cowboy styling? It's where you just straight
Out of
from
the
the
bottle.
bottle as much as you can swallow without puking.
Oh.
Watching this guy arc electricity on the power lines outside trying to fix it. So we're just seeing this. We're like, definitely close enough to be electrocuted by either lightning or these arcs of electricity. That was my uncle. So I'm just trying not to be that guy.
You
As
can
much as I
learn,
love him.
But you can learn from people either way, right? You, like I said
Yeah,
before,
this
with your
was
parents.
one of
Not to do.
Correct.
What not to do.
Here's how I uncle. My favorite thing was Candy and my mom came up with my niece and her friend, and my niece is very timid and but she's bizarre. She likes manga. She's a very interesting kid, and her friend is like even more timid. And every chance that I got while they were here, I would just barge into the room and scream at them. Just, hey, do you want Coca-Cola? It was never anything toxic or evil. It was just like, hey, we're going out to the store. You want to go with us? Fucking throw
That's
shit
sick.
But by the end of it, like they were not timid anymore. They were like hiding behind walls so they could scare me back.
All right, good.
I transformed them into slightly less fearful.
That's
young
one way
ladies.
of doing it.
And they'd be like, "Stop it!" I'm like, "I'm helping you. I'm helping you."
Yeah, I'm being
I'm like,
your uncle.
You're gonna be walking down the street, and some guy's gonna jump from behind a building, and you're gonna be ready. And you know what you're gonna do? You're gonna look back and say, "Thank you, Zeus. Thank you."
Being an uncle is definitely a unique job. It is definitely.
You like how I rationalize being a dick?
Yeah.
I love being an uncle, man. When I was a kid, my uncles were so cool. I was like, I can't wait to be an uncle, and I thoroughly enjoy being an uncle, man.
See,
Like I teach them fishing. We go like play with RC cars. Like I talk to them about stuff that it's just fun. I love it. It's a unique position to have in someone else's life.
Let me around them; they'll appreciate you more later.
Yeah, no, I loved having my nephew when he was growing up. Like he's 30 now, he's married.
Christ, you're old.
Oh, fuck off. Anyway.
I know I didn't really need to say that. You kind of said it.
No, not really. No, thanks.
Thanks for all the nephews watching, right?
No, but no,
And
he
Michael.
was great. He was great to be around when I was younger and I had a little more energy, and he was into the stuff that I was into, so I could teach him about Marvel comics and things like that and horror movies and whatnot.
Important stuff.
Yeah, important stuff. And no, Dana knows him. He's like one of the sweetest guys in the world. But I've also got like 15-year-old niece, Dane,
Just
that
15.
I have nothing in common with at all because she's a girl. Like, I don't know what you do with that. Like, I don't like. I'll try to be sweet. And hey, Jacqueline, how was school? How's volleyball going? That kind of thing. I can make conversation, but it's a girl.
He says that like he's puking.
No, I just.
It's harder. It's more difficult. I'm
It
sure.
is difficult. Plus, a teenage girl with boys and all that. Like I
have one. I have one niece, and she calls me Stinky Uncle Mikey, and I love it. It's like I see her, I just start laughing. Like anytime we see each other, we just big hug and we just laugh. I mean, she's like such a stinker. It's hilarious.
That's great. This
is where I do take Dana's advice. I'm just consistently a piggish oaf around any child that is in my life.
Yeah, you're true to yourself.
And if they don't like it, that's bad on them.
Yeah, right.
So before we wrap up, I do want to say,
fucking kids, get this
before we wrap up, since it was kind of like the topic tonight, what would be some advice you would give yourself? Like if you could, and in keeping this in mind, we're not dead yet. Like we can give ourselves. I'm saying we can give ourselves advice right now too, right?
Yeah,
so,
I guess.
I'm just saying it's not. You don't always have to look backwards. Like and again, you don't have to say what advice you would give yourself now, but we're a lot wiser than we were. We do have life experience. Like you can always give yourself advice. You can always improve. But like what would be something you would tell yourself? I think some of us already said. I don't know if all of us has, but
okay. Well, all right, Mike. Did you go? Or you feel good?
Yeah, no, I'm good. I kind of got into. I was talking about don't rush into things. Trust your gut. Surround yourself with quality people. Learn a trade or learn something that you could always fall back on to make money if you have to.
Yeah, those are all good, man. Those are all good.
I'm sticking with the self-love because I feel like that's without that, you know, everything else just is shit.
Mhm.
Yeah, try learning that at 50.
Yeah,
Well, that's what Mike just said. These
You
lessons
can.
are very now.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
we're young enough, we're still young enough, and we know what we know now. So now is a critical point in our lives. Like we could take this one way or another at this point. This is like two paths, you know, and this is like down the road. That's when you find people who do the life review, and either they're going to be miserable, bitter, sour, and unhealthy and unhappy when they look back on their lives, or they're going to be self-satisfied and they're going to be happy and grateful and more bubbly and more enthusiastic. There's two types of old people.
You're right.
whatever.
Me.
Whatever. Wait a minute, Dana. So you're saying, wait, Dana, you're saying there are two paths you can go by, but in the long run, there's still time to change the
Sometimes
road you're
change
on?
the road you're on.
Okay.
At this
So-
point,
So
at this
technically,
point,
you can
you go
always
past
change.
the 50s, you're done.
Well, like
That's
earlier, I'll just throw this in.
We're at the
basically
crossroads
said there-
now. Then.
I'm
You gotta
depressed.
pick
We are.
something, but if you don't, you can still pick something later.
Yeah,
Little wishy-washy.
No, I was gonna say, and this was before Jack and Dana came on, but just to tie it back up with a bow, and then Tom and Zeus, and you guys can finish with what your advice is. But I brought up the play Crap's Last Tape by Beckett, and one of the things that's just like heartbreaking in this play is this guy's listening to him. He's an older man. He's listening to himself making these recordings throughout his life. And he plays one, he's like in his 70s, and he plays one from when he's like in his late 30s, speaking about an event that happened when he was in his early 20s with this girlfriend that he had at the time, and just how into her he was and how much he loved her, and you know, everything was sunshine, lollipops, and rainbows. And his middle-aged self was like, man, I was such a fool. I felt that love was, you know, important and blah blah blah. I didn't understand how the world worked. And then he's listening to himself ridicule his middle-aged self, ridicule his younger self as an older man. And he's, again, just like the regret, you know, where it's like, wow, I didn't learn my lesson. Like I had it right, you know, when I was younger. So Dana's point's absolutely spot on. I mean, we're, you know, everyone, it's not just like midlife or what, you can always correct. You can always correct. You can always, like, you know, be an advocate for yourself. It doesn't matter, you know, how, it's not like we're done. Die's cast, we're just playing out a thread. That's not true. You can always adjust, you know.
And yeah, you know, it's kind of like, yeah, I'm always trying to like feel better about things. Mike talks about doing an episode on joy, and I'm like, what's that? Like, I mean, I know I'm not bitter. I'm not angry. I am looking for that joy. And I got great kids. I got other issues. I love my job. You know, I have a lot of good things going. I'm crushing it at school, like A's all the time. But I can't find that place that she's talking about. Mike, you've talked to me enough. I'm like, I'm upbeat, I'm positive, but I really do have a hard time sometimes just being comfortable in my own skin.
It's going to take some work, man. It's not you don't flip a switch. It takes some work.
I'm not like trying to be a narcissist. I'm not, you know.
I'm not saying that. I'm just saying.
No, I don't think you are. I'm it's my own introspection.
Give yourself.
That's the thing about being in psych also. You analyze the shit out of yourself. I think nursing in general, you're like constantly.
You have to be kind to yourself.
Your motives,
you have to be kind
everything.
To yourself, and you have to give yourself some space, and you have to, like, you know, work on it. And it's not.
Yeah, that's kind of my thing.
Switch.
I wish if I could do, my advice would just to be more confident, because that's always been.
Yeah.
I mean, Jack, you've known me forever.
I know.
I know I'm not a bad guy. I know I'm intelligent. I can do things. I mean, I'm farther along than a lot of people my age. I know all this, but I think it's that I don't think I attained as much as I probably could have. For me, So it would just be to shut the fuck up and listen to some of the people around you. Because this is my friends, the people that I'm talking to right now. We're all good people. And you guys are we're hanging together. So I must be contributing something. But yeah, that's the thing I want to work on, is just get into that place of joy. And
yeah, Zeus, you just gotta breathe, man.
yeah, I think I'm gonna go to weed card. Because honestly, I was thinking about that when I sent Mike the other day. I was like, "Hey man, you want to split? You want to go halvesies on a weed card?" Right? He's like, "Yeah." Because
you guys need a card in the state you're in. You need a card.
Yeah, you need a card
legally,
or if you get pulled over. Now, but it's like $200, and then you can carry. But
what do you mean you get pulled over? You don't have it in the fucking car.
You don't go driving around.
You gotta drive it from the dispensary, Jack.
I would walk.
You gotta walk from the dispensary, Jack. You still have to have the card. But I was like,
when do they do recreational there? Like, when do they? Is it up for a vote?
So it's like decriminalized. Like, you can have up to an ounce, but you have to have the card.
Yeah, you don't need a card here anymore.
You gotta move. Yeah, New Jersey is so much more advanced than Virginia. What exit do you live on?
Do you know the Muffin Man?
Wow. That's like the third time that song's come up this week.
Yeah, Lenny and Larry, Dan.
But because that, for the joy thing, I do often remember a lot of times we're smoking weed. I was pretty fucking joyous.
Well, listen, Zeus, not to jump back in, but when I was saying like doing an episode on what brings you joy, I'm not talking about like Marie Kondo here. I'm just saying what things
I read that book.
I know what things in life bring you joy. And I mean, not to be like all like cheesy, but doing this podcast brings me joy.
Absolutely.
I look forward to it. I love
being what, Michael? Honestly, the smallest things bring me joy. And I tell this back all the time. The smell of coffee, a good brew of coffee. Like, I drink my coffee black with nothing in it. So I want the right beans. I crush them myself. That whole process every morning just does it for me. Like, I'm happy.
Yep.
Sunset, an aroma, like really like laundry when I clean it and comes out of the dryer. It's like small things do it for me. Because all those little things add up to be a joyful life or a joyful day.
And that goes back to confidence too.
Like getting a patient good, like that, my confidence with how I deal with patients as a psych nurse. Medical nurse, I'd be fucked. But as a psych nurse, I get them. Like, I'm always the one, they have the bad patients. I'm like,
all right, so you're rewarded at work.
Oh yeah, absolutely. That.
Nothing wrong
I just
with
like
that.
to have it more broad.
It's really, it doesn't have to be something major. It's just appreciation, like being able to be like, oh, that was nice. And everything doesn't have to be the best and the biggest and the greatest, right?
Look at Tom. It's like Kubrick.
Yeah, man. What state does Tom live in? Are you in Virginia, Tom?
Yeah, I'm in Virginia.
Okay. So,
well,
I'm in Maryland.
I don't know how long we've been on, but we may have to continue this another time.
This is a good one.
Yeah, cool, man.
You know what? Honestly, we should probably be leaning further away from all the politics stuff and finding more.
Oh, bullshit.
No,
I think it's a mix. I think it's once in a while. Like maybe.
Yeah, Zeus, we've got like 33 or 34 episodes. It's a mix.
It's a mix.
But I enjoy these ones so much more when, and you know what? We don't go nearly as tangential when we're talking about like stuff that is fun. When we get into Biden, it's fun. Oh, that's the thing I would change. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, right. I can do it again.
But when we get into that stuff, man, there's this ire and this venom and bile, and then when Mike's done talking, we feel the same way.
It's
I've been meaning to. I really wanted to. I was telling Jason that last week. I was like, Mike wants. What was it we were talking about last week? I forget. The border. And I was like, I told
it started
Jason,
there. Yeah.
I told Jason that I just wanted everything Mike said. I just wanted to repeat it, like what's the guy? Infowars.
Alex. Alex,
I
whatever.
just want to repeat whatever he said, like Alex Jones, just so he could see that sometimes it does sound a little crazy.
No, it doesn't, Mike. It's bullshit, Mike.
I know.
I love Mike on those podcasts because he's so quietly exasperated. It's fucking beautiful.
But here's the thing. So like they used to teach us. Did you ever hear this one in nursing school? I think this is a nursing school kind of thing, Dana. Did you ever hear the thing like with multiple choice tests? If you couldn't get the answer, say like you always could narrow it down to two, and then you say the last two in a baby voice. And the one that sounds the most ridiculous, you leave that one out. You go with the right one.
No, but I do know that all the answers are correct. Just one's more correct than the ones.
I know. I
most
fucking
correct.
hate nursing school. Nursing school is like going to school. You're like being punished for wanting to do something good. But that's what I want to do with Mike. I just want to repeat everything he said, like
In a baby
fucking
voice?
lunatic.
No,
So he can go, oh, you know what?
The thing is,
Yeah, that does sound a little.
this is why perspective is important. Like, I feel like I'm completely, incredibly reasonable and calm, cool, and collected.
I agree.
That's my self-image of it.
I agree, Mike.
If you think
I
of being
agree.
Alex Jones, I'm like, man, that's amazing.
No,
I don't know. Was there something we could have did? Sorry, Jack. Was there
Yeah.
something we could have did like 20 years ago that would have had like a butterfly effect and prevented all this nonsense?
Prioritize civics
socialism.
education.
Yeah, all this critical race. I don't know
Prioritize
what's
civics
going on.
education. Like,
You know what though?
teach
Honestly,
children what this
No,
country
how
is
about-
founded on.
No, I think they never should have. Mike, you can help me out here. What was the congressional act that allowed social media to do whatever the fuck they wanted to do?
Section
Yeah.
230. Yeah. Where
Yeah.
They
basically
used to
What a
have to be
nerd.
balanced, and they took away the thing where they had to be balanced.
Right. They took away liability also.
No, what it was is said that social media is a
Dana, do you
is
see
it
how
a
it turns back into
publisher
politics?
or is it a platform?
No,
So
we're talking about what we would change
No,
from,
they
from
made
when we
it.
were young.
They claimed it
I
It's
was.
fit it in
depressing,
there.
right?
Oh, Jesus Christ.
so it's whether social media is a publisher or a platform. So
And
if the Washington Post writes something and it is incorrect, they can be held liable for it. But
Right.
social media said, no, we are not a publisher, we're a platform. We're just
The
a
social
mechanism
media said
where-
we're a publisher, not a platform.
where other people post things. But the problem is Facebook and Twitter have been
On
editorializing.
Infowars tonight.
All right, Mike,
Yeah.
forget it. He's ranting.
I know. Yeah, who's
How many
Alex
beers have you
Jones?
had?
Who is Alex Jones here?
Yeah, no shit.
I'm sorry.
No, it's-
just,
As soon as they start
hey,
editing
Dana's laughing. That's all I care.
what's in there, then they become
It's
publisher.
joy.
and they
I
should be
agree.
held
Mike,
under publisher laws.
well, Tom asked the question. That's my answer. I would not have let them get away with that.
It was Section 230 of like
Yeah.
the Communications
See,
Act of
I would have
1996
gone
or
with a
something.
more pragmatic answer and said that we should have not voted for George Bush Sr. to be president because that was the beginning. That was No Child Left Behind. We need children left behind. That was the beginning of socialism, as far as I see it.
Wait.
As soon as we started saying,
Wasn't that
Uh-huh.
W?
no, there's
Here-
no losing softball
here-
team. There's nobody stays back.
Here's
I stayed
listen.
back.
wait, I need the
Wait, wait,
microphone.
Hold on.
I have
hold on.
okay.
You
Hold
would
on.
have
No,
went
no,
with
no, no, no.
Dukakis instead of
Wait,
Bush
whoa,
Senior?
whoa.
Who's talking? Hold on. Here's what I'm saying. I stayed back. I went to the 10th grade twice. Okay. Then I dropped out of high school. Where am I now? I'm again back to what I was saying earlier. Own a home educated, 2 kids, 2 cars. There is something to be said for a little shaming your life and failing and overcoming it. And when we do this whole, listen, I mean, you don't have to agree. That's how I
agree. Consequence.
Grace.
Yeah.
Look,
and George W is the one that started that.
Here's the thing about Zeus that cracks me up. He's like on me when I'm like, hey, you know what would be a good idea? Like maybe teaching kids civics education and like what our form of government means. And then he calls me Alex Jones. And then he's like, we have to leave children behind, or we have to storm machine gun nests or whatever. Right. I'm like, why don't we just teach
what
the separation of powers is? It's like, that's a radical, crazy. Who is this guy? He's like completely
I don't really think you're Alex Jones. I just all of that was just to fuck with you, and obviously you're not.
Right.
I know. I'm just saying
because he's a fucking lunatic. You
Mike,
only appear to be a lunatic.
No, Mike, yeah. Mike, he's the one that wants to let everybody in, enlist them, and send them back to Mexico.
Right, but I'm the crazy one. Like, I'm nuts.
Right. I'm about tough lessons.
Wait, weren't we being happy about this, like, very nice episode we were having?
Yeah. I don't know what. Yeah, Tom.
Sorry, I screwed it up.
I blame Tom.
Let's finish up with the advice. Right. Anyone have any advice for their 18-year-old selves? You gotta, we'll wrap it up. You had this whole list, Jack. You got to give us the list. You had a whole list.
Well, I mean,
it's tough for what to change. Oh, go ahead.
I had a couple of silly, frivolous ones, like play music young and stick with it. Eat hearty and often at all times when it's offered. Don't settle. Don't fucking settle for anything. Period. I don't care if it's wine, women, or song.
Yeah.
Just don't do it.
Yep. You hear that, Dana? Don't settle.
All right. And then finally, I think Dana will appreciate. No, Dana
unless it's the divorce settlement.
Yeah.
Just saying, Dana.
Hey,
Tom. Think that one out.
Tom, don't muddle the issue with fact, okay?
Just don't settle, Dana.
All right, and then, hey, Michael, I had a couple that were very mental, like you had talked about, and it was breathe easier, breathe better, and I put yoga in question marks, not just because my girlfriend's a yoga certified instructor,
but mostly.
I wrote, be less afraid, take chances, think less negatively. And in my case, that applied to writing a lot because I was reading some of the great authors and I was trying to write. And I would compare myself to them constantly. And it was this constant fear of failure. Like fear of failure is crippling. It's absolutely crippling.
Yep.
Yeah, I think that's a good piece of advice too, like to compare yourself to you and no one else.
Right.
I tell my daughter
that's one of my
big ones. She goes to a very competitive all-girls Catholic academy. Yeah. And on the post, I did too, but I told her, don't compare yourself to other people. You compare yourself to your last test, your last grade, yesterday.
It's gone.
No one else. Yeah. Because girls at that age are atrocious.
Yeah, and so are boys. And then also just for my own personal confidence, like when I was 18 years old, I probably weighed like $120.
We're still doing the show.
Hang on, Zeus is on the phone.
I'll call you back.
Zeus got to mute himself.
We're getting off soon. I'll call you back.
I don't know why you're not muted, Zeus.
He's talking to Joe Biden.
Yeah.
Something like that.
No, just for my own like edification and my own like going into my 20s and 30s to build confidence. This is going to sound stupid, but I wrote work out more, learn how to fight professionally trained, and make sure that I try out for things. I don't care if it's chorus or theater or music.
Huge. Yeah, man.
That's what I was going to say. That was going to be mine. I mean, I agree with pretty much everything you're saying, Jack. But the one thing I was going to add on was to get more involved in other stuff. because at that age you're kind of like wrapped up in yourself a lot.
Yeah.
And you're just trying to make it from paycheck, and you're doing your
Right.
stuff and everything,
But
and you're kind of floundering around. But just get involved in things and get involved with other people and stuff like that.
yeah, and also just do it confidently. Like I remember like telling my kids, because I learned the hard way. I was like, when you walk into a room, walk in like you own the place. Don't like kind of pussy step it in, like half stepping and looking around. Who do I know? Just walk in, you know? You know what I mean? Like, just have a little confidence. Like, you're a badass. If you walk around thinking I don't mean act like a dick. Like, that's a big difference. A lot of kids when we're growing up who are confident are just dicks.
Yeah.
And so you kind of know on a
Either
level.
that
Well,
or
there's a
they're
difference between
insecure and you
confidence and
perceive them as
arrogance.
confident.
Well, no, they're insecure,
They
definitely.
are insecure. People who act like dicks are insecure.
Well,
Yeah, but
it's
there's a fine line between confident and being a dick.
Well, it depends. That's perspective.
well, it's the difference between assertive and being aggressive. It's
Right.
confidence
Right.
and arrogance. You know.
Right.
Yeah.
And quite often, I think we get confidence mixed up with arrogance. We deliver confidence
Well, I
as
think it's
arrogance.
because we all suffer like self-esteem issues. So when someone's confident at a healthy level, it can look like arrogance, but it's really not. Then there's arrogance then there's real arrogance.
Right.
And
Which
that's where perspective comes in too, because you could just be confident, but other people that are less confident look at you as arrogance. There's a green-headed monster there of
It's
you know, like
relative,
for
yeah.
me,
right.
people do in my job, I will walk right up to a screaming, like hostile, angry person without thinking twice about it. But there's things I do, like I keep an arm's length, I talk calmly, I do a lot of things. And then there's like this other guy who's just he's an asshat. And he'll go and do this, he'll mimic what I'm doing, but I have a presence of mind where, you know, I'm doing a lot of things and keeping my head on a swivel. And he just thinks, because I say, hey buddy, calm down. He goes up and goes, hey, my brother. And then like, he stands right in their face and like all these things, they're sitting down, he stands over them. If I see somebody sitting down, I try and get down on their level. There's lots of psychological things that you do.
Zeus, you're an empathetic person.
But what I'm saying is that for me, it's confidence. I don't even consider the fact that I'm going to get hit because I know where I'm coming from, and it does relay. It does, in some way, shape, or form. This is going to sound bad, and I don't mean it bad, but you got to kind of think of like other people, like when you walk up to a dog that's barking, they're not necessarily ready to attack you, but if you act fearful, if you show weakness, they capitalize. And with people that I work with that are less in tune with their emotional state and they're less inhibited, you know, going crazy is a liberating experience. You want to jerk off in the middle of the hall? Go for it. You know what I mean? So if you want to hit somebody, you just
I don't know how we got on that.
Well,
we're definitely off topic now.
What I'm saying,
Zeus,
I don't know.
Zeus.
I'm like, what?
Advice to 18-year-old self.
We're
Just jerk off in the hallway.
I don't-
Did you
No,
go
we were
in-
talking about confidence,
Yeah.
confidence, and
Don't
arrogance.
jerk off in the hallway.
No,
That's what
no,
I
no.
don't like.
You
Rarely do that. I rarely
You know
do.
what? You know what? If
Cut
I
off the
knew,
last 2 minutes. Let's go.
no, listen. I can tell you right now, honestly, if I knew then what I know now, I never would have jerked off in the hallway.
I would have done it more.
It would not have happened. And it happened a lot.
One
I think the
wow,
main
don't even know how-
takeaway from
I
this
think that's
episode
it, guys. I think we're
is,
I
Dana,
think
don't
leave
Yeah,
settle.
Zeus, you
Don't
gotta.
ever settle.
Hey, Zeus. Yeah, don't settle.
that's the title of the episode.
Yeah,
Don't jerk off in the hallway.
Don't jerk off in the hallway. All
That's
right,
the
Don't
sum total of
settle.
all of our knowledge
Yeah.
up to this point in our
Listen,
lives. Wait, wait,
listen.
That's
I
the
hate
advice.
250 years of experience between us.
Dana.
Don't
Help me
jerk off in
out.
the hallway.
Dana, help me out with the
Somebody
listen.
had to say it.
With the what?
With the listen.
Listen.
Thank you.
Listen.
Thank you. All right, listen, guys. We've been on this for a long time. I think it might be time to wrap it up. Go ahead, Zeus.
Yeah.
Okay, less jerking off.
Let's jerking off. That's our
Thanks.
advice.
Good show, guys.
Good show.
Earmuffs, Dana.
Thank you for
Earmuffs.
having me. I think
I think.
Didn't need to have you. We were just going to do it in the hall anyway.
oh my God.
Right off the cliff.
I love you all. Bye
Love
bye.
you. Take care,
Bye.
guys.
Love you guys.
Bye,
Bye-bye.
guys.
Mike, that's you. I'll call
Yeah.
you in a second. Is that okay? I'll call you in a second. Okay.
I'm still. Should I stop recording?
Yeah, you can stop recording.